my attractions had never changed, and of all the hundreds of people that I had tried to help and had been around, their attractions had not changed. And the people who had said that they were delivered, when I would ask them more questions, it would always kind of fall apart and break down, and it would really come down to that they were really just repressing their attractions, that they really had not actually reoriented. I'm McKrae Game. I'm the former president of Hope for Wholeness, which was a national, international ex-gay organization and network. I was trying to go against something that was really who I was. From that boy that was 5 years old putting his sister's ballerina outfit on, because I knew there was something different about me. When I was 19, I came out to my family and lived as a practicing homosexual for 3.5 years. Then got caught up in the evangelical and the ex-gay world for the next 28 years. Wanted to be normal like anyone else, and heard this radio spot and wanted to see what it was about, and went. I saw Mike Conrad's book, You Don't Have to Be Gay, and picked it up, of him and Mike Haley and these letters going back and forth with each other, and started going to see the therapist that was holding the conference. You know, I would go once a week, you know, off and on for the next 8 years. In that time, started dating women. Not that I was attracted to women, but you know, the idea of having a family with someone of another man was just unthinkable at the time. Got married during that time to my first Exodus conference. It was a regional in Virginia, and then I went to my first national in Seattle, Washington with my wife, and just very quickly became a part of leadership in the ex-gay world. I had not seen any. I had not been, you know, around any gay porn in a number of years, but I was down the street buying a Snickers bar or something at this gas station that was, you know, a half mile away from my house that I had never been in. And I'm paying for my candy bar, and I look over to the left, and there's this whole rack of magazines, and I saw guys on the magazines from where I was, and I walked over to them, and it was gay porn. I had not seen it in years, and bought a magazine, brought it home, used it, and burned it. And I got in this repetitive pattern of buying and burning. And I eventually, because I was so grieved at what I was doing and this bad, you know, Christian witness I was being to these people, that I wrote them a letter. They were Muslims, and they closed their stores on Sundays. And so I wrote them a letter and told them, or apologized to them for my poor Christian witness, and told them that I would never be in their store again. And I put a picture of my wife and I in the letter to basically make those store clerks accountability partners with me to try to stop that action. And for years, I battled with driving past that store and having flashbacks, because I was trying to repress something that was so innate to who I am, and I'm trying to go in a completely different direction. That was a hard time in my life. even though my attractions weren't changing and shifting, I was so convinced of their position against homosexuality and their heteronormative singular way of thinking that I really couldn't see straight around to think of another plausible way to be. Evangelicalism and ex-gay organizations are very much like a cult. You don't realize you're in a cult. You know, you just become very, very convinced of what you're doing. It has its own unique language and this own methodology that you completely buy into. My ministry newsletter was more of a form of propaganda than it was anything, using my marriage as a propaganda tool, trying to say how in love I was and trying to use my family as this propaganda tool. You know, in ex-gay ministry, you're almost trained to not be honest with yourself and to really deny those things. You couldn't even say the word gay about yourself. You have to say same-sex attraction. So much of the ex-gay world is not authentic. They've just totally drank the Kool-Aid of the evangelical world and they use these words like delivered and I've changed, and when we're really not being honest. Because one of the things I learned really not too long into my ex-gay stint of 20 years was we in the ex-gay world use words like freedom, hope, change, delivered, and they mean something completely different to general society when it comes to the subject of change from homosexuality, delivered from homosexuality. The world and the Christian world, they believe that to mean reorienting. So much of the ex-gay world is just not honest with themselves because they so want to please their pastors and their friends, and they're doing such a disservice to the people that they serve and especially to themselves. I was doing a disservice to myself. You know, over the years, I counseled a lot of people, a lot of men, young and old, a lot of family members, a lot of wives. I have a lot of regrets for the things that I said in all those years, especially early on where I was more of a zealot. You might have been a young person excited about coming out and your parents sent you to me to try to talk you out of being gay, and I might have been kind of ugly to you. And I really do apologize. Ask for your forgiveness even, and don't necessarily expect you to give it. And in many ways, I was envious of you because I was stuck in a role and you weren't stuck in a role. And I hope that you will live your life to the fullest that I'm trying to do now. You know, Scripture tells us to love one another as we love ourselves. You cannot love anyone if you hate yourself. I knew I couldn't stay where I was, and I was in a great deal of inner turmoil and conflict and pain. And I had a few people respond and say, "You just came out on Facebook," and I'm like, "No, that's not what I did. I didn't mean that's not what I meant." And they're like, "No, you came out," and I'm like, I was going from being the ex-gay poster boy to renouncing my work. The evangelical Christians, there was no talking to them. I wasn't on their side anymore. You know, 99% of my social network, I lost those people. And so I was alone for a long time. Reparative therapy, or conversion therapy as it is also labeled, is something that is harmful. It's a it's a false promise. It is something that was created primarily by ever straight therapists trying to invoke their ideology and theology on LGBTQ individuals, trying to make them heteronormative. I was told that my attractions would shift, that they would diminish, that they would lessen. And in 28 years of me going through that process of conversion therapy and becoming a leader, my attractions actually intensified. They never lessened or diminished at all. You know, the Christian world always talks about having peace and joy, and that you can't have peace or any joy if you're living in sin. You know, that's their language. But I will say that in my 28 years of trying to repress my sexuality and go in a completely opposite direction of what is really more innate of who I am, I was in a constant state of anxiety. I had 4 nervous breakdowns while I was in ex-gay ministry, trying to be something different than I was and trying to help other people do the same thing. It really created a form of mental illness in my life. And I have to say, since I have put aside that struggle of trying to live for everyone else and trying to deny my sexuality and who I am, and really just saying, I don't care who and what other people think, I have more peace now than I have ever had in my entire life. Really, the United States pioneered and perfected ex-gay ministry, and one thing we realized is it doesn't work. It's a waste of time. It is harmful for other countries to try something that we tried and it failed. And I would strongly encourage you to not go down the road that has harmed so many people's lives, including mine, and countless young people and older people who have repressed their identity and tried to change something that really can't and shouldn't be tried to be changed. I do often wonder what my life would have been like if my parents would have accepted my sexuality, if I had accepted my sexuality. I wonder what kind of marriage my wife would have had if she wouldn't have married me. What kind of relationships in life I would have had if I had not been led down the road that I went down.